there, this is Kimberly Wilson, and welcome to the 473rd edition of Tranquility du Jour, bringing you tranquility since 2005. Tranquility du Jour is a series of nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. This week, I'm chatting with Cory Allen about his new book, Now is the Way. Learn how to find the present moment, ways we get distracted and pulled out of our lives, and actionable steps to live in the present moment. Upcoming events. Planning 2020 TDJ Style. So that's happening December 29th, online via YouTube Live, and a private invite will be sent to everyone who purchased Year of Tranquility or the Daybook and registered for their bonuses. Also, December 31st, New Year's Eve mini retreat at YogaWorks Dupont in Washington, D.C. Save the date for our next TDJ Live, a free 1-hour online event, New Year Fresh Start. That is Sunday, January 5th, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, online via YouTube Live, and a private link is sent upon registration. And then finally, if you would like to escape into the present moment and spend a week studying mindfulness, creativity, and yoga, join me for Tranquility in Provence, May 30th through June 5th. And this is happening at a private villa nestled in the south of France between Nice and Marseille. Looking for the perfect gift for yourself or someone else? Consider the Tranquility du Jour Daybook, chock full of tips, tools, and checklists for living with productivity and tranquility. You'll find seasonal layouts, monthly layouts, weekly layouts, invitations to pause, lists to complete, plant-based recipes, and so much more. This pretty planner is for the busy woman who longs to infuse more tranquility into her days while staying organized, creative, and inspired. You can find the Daybook on Amazon and at kimberlywilson.com/daybook2019. Cory Allen is a podcaster, The Astral Hustle, and I have a link to it in the show notes, which can be found at kimberlywilson.com/473. He's a meditation teacher and an audio engineer. Through his popular online meditation course, Release Into Now, he's helped thousands of people learn to meditate with clarity and simplicity. He's the author of Now is the Way, an unconventional guide to modern mindfulness. Welcome, Cory.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you. So tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to write Now is the Way, an unconventional approach to modern mindfulness.
Well, in as short and succinct as I can make it, I've been studying philosophy and mindfulness and practicing meditation for over 20 years. And ultimately, it all came from necessity. You know, that was in the 90s, whenever I started with that. And so it's kind of a different game and tone and what have you as far as those things are considered in society and how we tend to think about them, as opposed to now that they've become much more popularized and familiar with people in general. So it was very much a path of necessity of, you know, because of the environment I was in and different things I was suffering from, finding those tools, discovering those tools on my own to take control of my inner life and really, you know, had this beautiful moment of figuring out, no matter what was going on in my life outside of me, that my inner world, my inner life was mine, and that I could not only be safe in that space, you know, in my mind and in my inner world, but also begin to become more self-aware and change the behaviors that I began recognizing in myself and started addressing some of the, you know, traumas and experiences that I've had that were causing bad anxiety and feelings of fragmentation and all this stuff. And as I began to become more aware of my inner life, I began to notice the change in who I was and the way that my past and my environment had programmed certain behaviors and reactions into me, into the way I was living my life, and began seeing like, wow, I'm being able to respond to my life a bit more and recognize how I'm acting and showing up in the world, and then actually start changing that a little bit for the better, for who I wanted to be as opposed to who I had been forced into being. And that really has been going on for the last 20 years now. And I wrote Now is the Way because on my podcast, The Astro Hustle, I talk about these things, and I've talked about my past experiences, and I began getting just a lot of emails and messages from listeners on the show saying how problems. What was interesting to me is that I thought were only experiences that I had. I quickly learned that those are universal human experiences, like challenges that we have, even down to something I called having existential paralysis, where there was a period in my life just feeling so overwhelmed and freaked out with the fact that I was aware that I existed, that it was quite paralyzing. And I thought, well, surely I'm one of, like, that's a more uncommon thing, but apparently not. Apparently a lot of people experience that. And so it gave me a very unique insight into, in the world of mindfulness and the inner path, what challenges are the most common. And also, I released a meditation course about, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago or something like that. And again, thousands of people took that course, and I had a ton of feedback from those people, and I was able to be in a unique position to learn what are the common issues and roadblocks and things that people run into, what do people struggle with. And so Now is the Way is really me looking at the modern world, where we're at right now. And there's a lot of invaluable, timeless books on mindfulness and what being more present-minded can do for you, or meditation. But a lot of those books are written 40 or 50 years ago. And because technology has evolved so quickly and society is always shifting faster and faster these days, there's a lot of new problems. We're facing a lot of new types of struggles. And so I wanted to really address what it's like to be a human living in 2019, 2020 today, what we're facing today, use all the feedback I got from the people that listen to my podcast and the people that have taken my meditation course, and then my own experiences, and really create this map that could be a guide that can help people do all the things that I described and change and have the same experiences that I've had, because I know that it's possible.
Yeah, I love this. And I love, too, the way you broke out the book. So, listeners, it's Now, Finding the Present. There, How We Get Lost. Here, How We Get Back. And then how to live in the present. So let's start with the first part. What is the present moment, and how do we experience it? How do we get in touch with it?
Yeah, well, the present moment has to do more with awareness and focus of your attention, right? So the present moment is just being tuned in and aware of what your body is doing, what you feel, the sensations in your nervous system, the tactile nature of your experience. What are your hands resting on right now? How's the weight distributed in the chair that you're sitting in? How is your breath? How is your chest rising and falling? It also has to deal then with the mirror of that, which is your inner life, your inner world. What thoughts are arising in your mind? How does your attention and your focus and your ability to think about your own experience, how is that showing up, right? So being able to strengthen your connection with both of these things about your consciousness is how you can tap into the present moment. I say that, it's very important to me to not just talk about these things, because these things are all intangible aspects of the mind. They become very nebulous and very slippery. And so it's very important to me to talk about them in the book with as much clarity and precision as possible, and really build this bridge from knowing to doing, so that you can experience these things in your life no matter where you're at. And so one of the ways that I describe in there really early on in the book is how you can experience the present moment and set yourself up for success by taking something that you already do in your life, the part of your morning routine, in choosing to have that be a moment of presence. So say you like coffee. I love coffee. I see that your picture has you drinking a cup of what I assume is coffee.
Tea, but just as good.
Yeah, just as good. So is it in that morning, a lot of times what people do, most people, is that they go, they grab their coffee, and then they, drinking it while they're getting ready in the morning, and then they drive to work and they finish it off there or whatever. And because I love coffee so much, I use the example is like taking just 2 minutes or even less if you're crazily pressed for time, 1 minute. And as you have that first cup of coffee or tea in the morning, really like pause, put your phone down, pick up the coffee, and have this moment with it. It's the difference between letting a piece of chocolate melt in your mouth and chewing it up really fast. The differences of those things are your attention and the depth of the experience. If you just chew up a piece of chocolate, which there's nothing wrong with that, there it is and there it goes. But if you let it melt on your tongue, it becomes this whole other almost sensual experience of our existence, of the physicality of the thing. Your sensory experience deepens and becomes more intense. Your focuses on that one flavor and that taste and everything that goes along with that, as opposed to all of the fragments of distraction and everything that we're usually embroiled in our lives. And so with this example, with coffee, I say, take your coffee and just take that first sip, feel the warmth, feel the liquid roll across your tongue, and the vapors go into the back of your nose and your blood vessels expanding in your head, and all these beautiful sensations that come along with drinking coffee. And just direct your focus and your attention towards as much of the fullness of that experience as you can. And you can do it once and then do it another time. It'll get deeper. And then the next morning it gets deeper. And it's a wonderful way to just start your day being tapped into the depth of your presence. And by that, it's great because it gives you a destination. It gives you a direction to aim for and to start from at the same time every morning. Also, another great one is like in the shower. Almost everyone showers in the morning. That's an amazing experience if your mind is present with it. Like the warmth of the water and the flow and the steam and all that stuff. It's a really luxurious thing. Even like washing, I love washing the dishes. It's the same type of thing as like feeling the warm water rolling on your hands and the plates and things like that moving. It's quite beautiful if you have the correct perspective.
Yeah, I love that. So it's incorporating it into what we're already doing, all our everyday kind of rituals, and yet just being with it versus, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I'm done washing the dishes so then I can do XYZ, right? It's like being with the suds, being with the warm water.
Right. We're always like, people always live 30 seconds in the future. And when you do that, you end up missing what you're experiencing now. And, that's because we're living in a world, this is sort of speaking to the technological aspects of the book and just of our society now, is that we're so overloaded with information and data these days. We get more notifications than like an air traffic controller now these days. It's just an insane amount of overwhelm that all of us experience. And what that does is it really truly does fragment and fray your mind. And it makes the way that you think in these small, granular, disconnected pieces. And so it leaves us all just feeling kind of in this momentum of, we get caught in this long momentum of distraction. And and so we forget that that's all just one way of experiencing life that has faded in and faded up so quickly that we didn't really even notice it had happened to begin with. One of the things I put in the book is like, think about how unhealthy it would seem if you checked your physical mailbox the same amount of times that you check your email every day. It's like if you went out of your house and went and checked your mailbox 50 times a day, like you need to go see a doctor, right? There's a serious issue going. But we do that every day with our phones because it doesn't take much energy. It's an easy thing to do, and it has become habitual slowly more and more over time. And then there's cultural reinforcement, where if you don't respond within a certain amount of time, what type of signal is that sending? So it breeds anxiety and all this. And so there's so many elements in our society now like that that have all lured us into this state of anxiousness and edginess. And it's just a matter of recognizing it and then taking the steps to dial that back.
Well, and the next piece, which segues perfectly, is how we get lost, right? So what are the ways we get distracted and pulled out of our lives? I mean, definitely technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Social media and internet is a huge one. Even our own inner critic, getting wrapped up in our self, almost kind of self-torture, beating ourselves up over things, getting stuck in our heads. Things like that are really confusing like self-care for entertainment. It's a big way to get lost. Is like people think, oh, I've been having a stressful day. I'm gonna go relax by watching Netflix for 4 hours or something like that. But that's not self-care. That's just like taking the phone off the hook, and that keeps you just further away from the actual issue that you need to address in the first place, which is either resting or something that's bothering you. So there are a huge variety of ways that we end up getting lost. And I think that really, these days anyway, technology and internet is in the pacing of life because of those things is a big one.
What would you say? Okay, the next piece, of course, is how we get back. So what are some ways to bring ourselves back to the present? Like, what I love about from the technology perspective is screen time, right? Where now you can see how many times did you pick up your phone today? How long were you on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, knowledge, like knowing this stuff is so useful. But what are some ways that you encourage listeners to kind of come back to recognize, right? And then come back to the present.
Yeah, well, just on the topic of technology, like chunking your screen time is such a valuable thing because, of course, like technology is incredible. We wouldn't be able to have this conversation without it, but letting it pepper throughout your entire day to where it keeps you always on edge is not so productive and not so healthy. And so chunking some of that stuff out to where, like, to me, I tend to look at social media, once or twice a day for 10 minutes at a time instead of checking it every 5 minutes for 10 seconds at a time. And it makes it where it's a bit more compartmentalized, a bit more easy to manage. And that way I'm not even thinking about it. And once you step away from kind of the spinning, like gerbil hamster wheel of notifications and just the frenzy of all that stuff, it's a very interesting experience where you see, as you revisit it, how the clarity of how kind of absurd that it is really arises. That's a very useful thing. Of course, meditation is incredibly helpful with reconnecting to the present. Directing you becoming aware of something like in conversation, whenever you're talking to a friend or anyone really, like really showing up for that conversation and being connected and making sure that you're locked in and your attention is focused on a person that you're engaging with. That's another really great way to become present. And then, I even suggest things like trying new things are very, very good ways to stay connected to that because, as we age, we tend to kind of learn what we like and we get comfortable with what we like, which is good. But what happens over time is that we usually get into habits and patterns of doing the same thing over and over. And that kind of can calcify the edges of our ability to see and experience new things. And we kind of forget to all right, I'm going to try something. I'm going to eat something weird, or I'm going to go to a new country, or try, a new skill, or try to play an instrument, or, whatever the thing is, try drawing, or whatever something new might be, a new type of book that you don't like. I don't read a lot of fiction, and this practice in action is I've been trying to read more fiction recently because my brain is kind of shaped to. I've always read nonfiction 90% of the time in my life, and so my brain is kind of shaped in that pattern. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to start reading. I'm going to read several fiction books in a row. And what's interesting is it truly does have this effect of it makes you. Doing new things like that, it makes you really stop, and you're forced to come to the present because you have to analyze the new input and the new information that you're experiencing. So if you think about, to look at that in the most extreme case, like going to another country, is that it really puts you right in the present, because you have to figure out, okay, how do I order lunch? How do I communicate with people? How do I cross the street? How do I find my hotel whenever it's all, ideogrammic language, if you go to Japan or something like that. So it really brings you right here, because you have to wake up and really engage with what's around you, as opposed to being lost in the story of the narrative of your imagination.
I love that. I think it's such a great reminder about doing things differently, shaking things up, learning new things, trying new things. And it brings you out of the reactionary phase, because you have to really think about it.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So the last piece, of course, is how. So how to live in the present. And one thing I loved about this chapter was the 12 ways to now. And I want to read a few of them and then have you share a little bit about these actionable steps, because they're so, so helpful. I mean, number one, you just mentioned narrative. Don't let your past keep you from the present. Number two, be kind to everyone. Honor your individuality. And I love, you talked quite a bit about that. Try new things that challenge you, which we just discussed. Serious about self-care. Yes, yes, yes. Create good habits. Consistent action plus time equals lasting change, which I love that with regard to creating new habits. Do it now. Connect with your friends, like in real life. Enjoy the journey. Hang out with people who know more than you, which is so important for growth. Don't get trapped in your thoughts. And then last but not least is just listen. So can you maybe elaborate on a couple of your favorites, or ones that you have found to be most useful or pertinent to people maybe new to this journey?
Yeah, sure. A huge one, and it's why I started with it, is don't allow your past to keep you from what your future could be, right? So the way that we come about as people, we're born into what I call like a family inheritance and a genetic inheritance. Like before we can even talk, we're being told by our life system who we should be, what we should be like, what's right, what's wrong, what we should think, what we should believe in, and what we should aspire for in our lives. And, people are 50% nature and 50% nurture. And so we're nurtured very strongly to be this one type of thing in most cases, but our nature might not always connect with that. And so, unfortunately, what happens is that a lot of times we, come up in life trying to listen to partly our intuition, but also partly we have everything in our head, from the ground floor that's been pushed in there as to who we should be and how we should operate. So what that does is it ends up making people feel like trapped by this, in this way of living and being, that they feel that they have to exist that way or else. And often there's a lot of palpable fear and anxiety around that, because they feel like if they go against this way that they were told, who they could be, who they couldn't be, then they'll be subject to some type of negativity from their family or whatever. But that's really just not true. Like you can be anything that you want, even if you were, not a very nice person, or you had, really difficult issues whenever you were younger. That is just like a season of what you were, right? And so people get like this idea, unfortunately, is that, oh, well, I was this thing and that's who I am. And I'm sort of like, this is it. I'm trapped by my past. But really, I think to me, it's so crucial to recognize that the past of who all of us were are just this roadmap guiding us forward to who we can be, right? And so every step of development and change that you choose to make for you is just another way to become more and more of expressing your true nature and the fullness of who you are. And so I think, just learning from your past, using that as the knowledge to move forward into the future, and allowing yourself to really be open and move towards what feels right to you, without fear of what you think that might lead to, I think is really, really important.
And you also have in the book the secret playbook of meditation methods. And can you share with our listeners maybe one of your favorite techniques or kind of one that you have found to be most useful?
I think that really for anyone listening, like the most important thing with meditation is to just lower the stakes, because there's so much in the, in the zeitgeist or the cultural lexicon about meditation that has been overcomplicated, and there's a lot of bad translation of Eastern ideas and kind of hallmarked ideas or kind of the mindfulness ideas, where these things have become almost memes as opposed to something with clarity and something that it actually was intended to mean in the first place. And so because of that, whenever people go to try and meditate, they often feel like they're doing it wrong or they're missing something, or they feel too intimidated to even start in the first place. And so I think that a really valuable practice for anyone just trying to start out, or even anyone that's more experienced, is this practice called 1 to 10 and over again that I put in the book. If you just sit down and, as I said, just completely lower the stakes, know that your mind, that you'll probably have all these wild thoughts roaming through your mind. And I also note in there that one of the big things I've heard from people is that the first time that they try and meditate, they go, my mind was going totally crazy and there was too many thoughts and it was just chaos in there. I failed. I don't have a quote unquote clear mind and maybe I'm just not built for this. But that recognizing that your mind is going bananas like that is actually the first and hardest step of practicing mindfulness, because your entire life up until this point, you didn't have that level of self-awareness, and you just took a step up and realized, oh, wow, you just got an internal vision of what's actually happening under the hood there. And that's the hardest part to break through. From there, it's just practice, So anyway, so think of, you'll sit down and simply just close your eyes and breathe in. As you breathe in, breathe, calmly, slowly, like you're sleeping. We all have beautiful meditative breath as we're sleeping because our mind is not grasping and trying to direct anything. It's just all flowing naturally. So you breathe in, and as you exhale, just relax the muscles in your face, relax the muscles in your shoulders and your arms and legs. Then just breathe in again. And again, as you exhale, relax the muscles in your face and your shoulders a little bit more. Allow it to just melt a little bit more. And then after you take a few breaths like that, then just count your breath as you're breathing in one time, and as you exhale, that's one. And you breathe in another time and exhale, that's two, and so forth until you can get to 10. And most people, I've done this in classes with people of 100 people, and I've at the end of the class, I've said who was able to get to 10 during that breathing exercise. I've had one person raise their hand. So it's quite difficult for a lot of people to try it first to get to 10. So by all means, if you do get distracted and your mind wanders, just as soon as you remember, I should be counting my breath right now, just go back to 1 again, start over again. No big deal. Happens to everyone. And so sitting with that practice for even 5 minutes a day, as I said, completely wiping away any of the mystical or metaphysical or preloaded ideas about what you should be experiencing or how you should feel, and just put yourself in the lab, feel how you're actually feeling right now, and then take it from there. And you will find, if you even do that for 5 minutes a day for a couple of days in a row, once again, that's why it's important to build it into your routine, make it a part of what you do after you wake up or right before you go to sleep or whatever it might be. The compound effects of that become very, very clear and very, very palpable. So how those show up is that you'll be then going throughout your day, and in a situation where you normally would have reacted to something that someone said to you, maybe you react in an anxious way, or you react in a judgmental way or a defensive way, or you're driving in traffic and someone cuts you off and you normally would get angry and frustrated or whatever it might be. You'll find slowly, it'll just glow brighter and brighter and brighter, that your conscious agency will begin clicking on, and you realize, oh, wait a second, I normally react right there. I didn't react. I just observed what happened and then responded to it with intention, as opposed to just a reaction. And that's really one of the most beautiful gifts of mindfulness and meditation, because as you begin to cultivate more inner awareness, you begin to be able to respond to your life consistently, fluidly, almost all the time. And what that does is, another thing I put in the book is that you're not your thoughts, but you're your thoughts that you turn into action. So we all have, positive, judgmental, critical, wild, boring thoughts all the time, But what makes a difference is being able to recognize what is arising, what's coming through, and then choosing which of those to express out into the world. And that's what makes you who you are. That's what then nurtures your habitual behavior into you blooming and continuing to grow into the thing, the person, the force that you want to be in the world.
Great reminders. And I think particularly I love the idea of the habit stacking, right? Just add it on to something you're already doing. And of course, there's like the Headspace app and all sorts of wonderful resources out there too, if you want to track it and, keep up the momentum. I have a client who is like so excited because she's at like day 75, of having done her 10 minutes. And I think it means a lot to people to see the growth and evolution around I'm able to take that pause before reacting and instead respond.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also if for beginning meditators or even people that are more seasoned, I created a lot of binaural beats, which are musical tracks, which are really great to accompany you in your meditation. And people really enjoy those. I get messages every day with people telling me that they meditate with them or listen to them before sleeping. So it's kind of like, think of it like a scaffolding for meditating. It helps tune your brain in, and also it's a lovely and relaxing sound to listen to.
My last question for you, Cory, the name of this podcast is Tranquility du Jour, right? So this idea of how do we find tranquility in the everyday? And I think I know the answer to this for you, but I'm curious, how do you find tranquility maybe beyond, seeking and finding the present moment, which I know is like a full-time job. I'm just kind of curious, is there anything else in kind of maybe the mindfulness realm that we haven't talked about or in your life that you do to find tranquility?
Yeah, that's real connection, like taking a moment to really connect with another living creature, whether it be an animal, your pet, or a friend, or a stranger, or whatever it might be. That's something I make sure and do as consistently as I can, but I do it deeply, and not in a theatrical way, but say my dog wanders in the room, it's very easy to kind of say, hey, what's up? And you give him a head scratch and move on. But if you take a moment and really get in there and give him a good deep ear scratch and, just feel that human resonance, or if you're, with your partner or whatever, it's very easy to get into your patterns and kind of just get into your habits of domesticated living. But really, at least once a day, trying to have that deep, good connection, even if it's only for a few seconds. Just see someone, witness someone, allow them to witness you, and feel that human resonance of. And I think truly that is the meaning of life. That's the meaning in life. Is that connection, that experience, is to share witness and let kind of the life force of two things touch and be there with it. That's where I find tranquility every day.
Beautiful. I mean, it is oddly so profound, right? And I think it ties into the just listen, the idea to actually be fully present, even if it's with your dog, right? To just listen, notice what's needed, connect. And it's taking those pauses that I think can provide such meaning. So thank you, Cory, for sharing such great insights. And your book is so clear and concise, which I love because I have piles of mindfulness books. And this one I think really, really spoke to me. So thank you for the work you're doing in the world.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really grateful for that. And I appreciate you having me on the show. And I just really appreciate the kind words about the book, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Savvy sources you'll find in the show notes at KimberlyWilson.com/473. A link to Cory's website, cory-allen.com, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and a link to his book, Now is the Way. If you have a moment, please take a screenshot of you listening to Tranquility du Jour, post it and tag me at Tranquility du Jour, or share using hashtag TDJ Podcast. Also, if you have a moment to share a review of the podcast on iTunes, it would mean so much to me. It helps other people find the podcast. And then also on Amazon, I have a link to all my books over on Amazon. And I so appreciate it when you all take a moment to pen a review. And as just a little thank you, if you pen a review and send me the link to it, I will send you a glittery postcard from Paris. I wanted to share a recent review that came for Tranquilology, a DIY guide to everyday tranquility. Healthy Heather writes, "This book presents just the right amount of nurturing and to-dos each month to make your life not just more tranquil, but also more engaged. Each month has more ideas on things to do to become a better you. My favorite thus far is to take an attractive page from a magazine or catalog and recycle it into a long list of goals complete with check-off boxes. It is then kept near you as a constant reminder on what you want to accomplish that particular month. Nice writing style and sweet illustrations as well." Thank you so much, Healthy Heather, for taking a moment to write that. I really, really appreciate it. Also, to find more episodes of Tranquility du Jour, that has been going on since 2005, please visit KimberlyWilson.com/podcast, or you can download the app, iPhone and Android app available. Also, subscribe in your favorite podcast app, such as Apple Podcast or Overcast, and I have a link to both of those in the show notes. If you are new to Tranquility du Jour, there is a Start Here, Learn More button in the show notes, and would love to welcome you into the community. And finally, you can sign up for Love Notes, which gives you exclusive content, personal updates, giveaways, and access to multimedia resources, Tranquil Treasures. So you can find all this again over in the show notes, KimberlyWilson.com/473. And thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast. I hope you are inspired as much as I was by chatting with Cory. Have a great week, and namaste.